Have you ever stood beside a grave, convinced the person inside would never speak again? Imagine watching a family lower a casket into the ground, hearing the quiet sobs of people saying their final goodbyes, believing the story had reached its painful ending. Then imagine receiving a phone call years later telling you that the man everyone buried was still alive. Most people would think that sounds impossible. Investigators thought the same thing. His family couldn't explain it. His closest friends questioned everything they believed to be true. And just when it seemed the mystery had finally been solved, the impossible happened again. The man who had somehow returned simply vanished a second time, leaving behind another trail of unanswered questions, another devastated family, and another investigation that would challenge everyone involved. Some believed he chose to disappear. Others believed someone wanted him gone forever. Even today, people continue to argue over what really happened, because every answer uncovered another question that refused to go away. What would you do if someone you had already mourned suddenly appeared standing at your front door? Would you celebrate, or would you wonder why they stayed away for so long? And if that same person disappeared again without leaving a single believable explanation, would you call it coincidence, deception, or something far more difficult to understand? This is one of those stories that becomes more unsettling the deeper you go. Every witness remembered something different. Every piece of evidence seemed to point in a different direction. Every conclusion investigators reached eventually raised another mystery. By the time this story reaches its ending, you'll understand why so many people still disagree about what truly happened and why this case refuses to be forgotten. Before we go any deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. For the next few minutes, set aside everything you think you know about missing persons. This isn't simply a story about someone disappearing. It's a story about identity, trust, memory, and the frightening possibility that sometimes the people closest to us may be living lives we never truly understood. Stay with us until the very end, because the final discovery changes the meaning of everything you've heard so far. This is the story of the man who vanished twice. The man at the center of this story was Ethan Carter, a husband, a father, and the kind of neighbor everyone believed they knew. He lived a quiet life with his family in a small American town where people left their doors unlocked and recognized every face on the street. Ethan worked hard, spent weekends with his children, and rarely gave anyone a reason to question him. Then, without a single warning, he was gone. No phone call, no note, no woodbye. His truck was found abandoned, but Ethan had simply vanished. Police searched the surrounding area for weeks while volunteers covered miles of roads and fields, refusing to give up hope. Friends feared the worst, and that fear became heartbreak when investigators discovered a body they believed belonged to Ethan. The identification appeared conclusive, a funeral was held, and his grieving family tried to rebuild their lives. For years, everyone believed the case had reached its tragic end, but the dead man wasn't actually dead. To understand why Ethan Carter's disappearance stunned so many people, you first have to understand the man everyone believed they knew. Friends described him as dependable, a family man who worked hard and rarely sought attention. He spoke often about giving his children a better future, yet investigators would later uncover small details that raised difficult questions. Was he struggling financially? Had problems at home become impossible to hide? Did someone from his business life hold a grudge? Or was Ethan carrying burdens he never shared with anyone? His family insists they saw nothing unusual, but looking back, there were warning signs. No one recognized them. The last week before he disappeared would later become the most analyzed 7 days of his life. On the morning Ethan Carter disappeared, everything seemed routine. He left home as he always did, exchanged a final phone call that investigators would replay countless times, and then his trail suddenly ended. By afternoon, witnesses offered conflicting accounts of where they had seen him. That night, his abandoned vehicle was discovered miles from where it should have been. His wallet was missing, a broken watch was recovered nearby, and security cameras captured a figure that investigators could never identify with certainty. Police believe the evidence pointed to one conclusion. and after a body was identified as Ethan's, the case appeared closed. Years passed before a stranger claimed to have seen him alive. Almost everyone dismissed the story as a cruel mistake, until photographs surfaced. The impossible had just happened. Then came the moment that shattered everything investigators thought they knew. Ethan Carter was alive. His family could hardly believe the man they had mourned for years was standing before them, while police faced difficult questions about how they had identified another body as his. News of Ethan's return spread across the country, but the biggest mystery was his explanation. The more he spoke, the more inconsistencies emerged. Experts questioned his account. Interviews raised fresh doubts, and the public became deeply divided. Online theories multiplied, as every answer seemed to create two more questions. If Ethan Carter had lied once, what else wasn't true? For a brief moment, it seemed Ethan Carter's unbelievable story had finally come to an end. Then, without warning, he disappeared again. This time there was no farewell, no body, no phone activity, no bank transactions, and no confirmed sighting. It was as if he had stepped out of existence. Investigators were forced back to the beginning, rebuilding the timeline piece by piece. Every person connected to Ethan came under scrutiny. His family was questioned. Friends were interviewed again. Business associates faced renewed attention. Some detectives even considered the possibility that Ethan himself had carefully planned another disappearance. Search teams combed forests and highways. Helicopters scanned from above, and the media reignited the story that had already stunned the nation. Just when it seemed the investigation had reached another dead end, investigators uncovered one final clue. After years of reviewing every report, investigators settled on a theory, though they never proved it beyond doubt. The facts were clear. Ethan Carter disappeared, was mistakenly declared dead, later returned alive, and then vanished a second time without leaving a trace. The rumors ranged from secret identities to criminal conspiracies, but none were supported by conclusive evidence. Witness testimony often conflicted, with some insisting Ethan seemed frightened during his return, while others believed he was carefully hiding the truth. Investigators considered whether financial pressure, fear of consequences, or the desire to escape his old life could explain his actions. Yet no single motive answered every question. In the end, the evidence explained parts of the story, but never the whole story. And that is why this case continues to fascinate people today. The biggest mystery was never where Ethan Carter went. It was why he needed to disappear twice. When investigators assembled every document, every interview, and every piece of physical evidence, one theory emerged more often than any other. The confirmed facts showed that Ethan Carter vanished, was mistakenly declared dead, returned years later, and then disappeared again without leaving a verifiable trail. Everything beyond that became a matter of interpretation. Some witnesses believed Ethan lived in constant fear, while others described a man who seemed strangely prepared for every question. Rumors suggested hidden debts, secret relationships, or an entirely new identity, but none of those claims could be proven. Behavioral experts argued that someone determined to erase his past might carefully control every detail of his story, while investigators admitted that several critical questions could never be answered with certainty. And that is what makes this case so unforgettable. The biggest mystery wasn't where Ethan Carter went. It was why he needed to disappear twice. Perhaps only Ethan ever knew the truth, and if he did, he took that answer with him into silence. So, what really happened to Ethan Carter? What makes someone walk away from an entire life? Was it fear, the promise of freedom, overwhelming guilt, or a reason that was never uncovered? Every investigation eventually reaches a point where the evidence ends and the questions begin, and this case may have crossed that line forever. If you had been the lead investigator, what would your conclusion have been? Do you believe Ethan carefully planned both disappearances? Was he running from someone who never stopped looking for him? Or do you think there is still someone out there who knows exactly what happened, but has chosen to remain silent? Share your theory in the comments, because we genuinely like to hear it. And if stories where every answer creates another mystery fascinate you, subscribe, and join us for our next investigation, because it may be even more unbelievable than the story of the man who vanished twice.